I'm Nate Eaton here chatting with Frank VanderSloot. The primary election is coming up in actually just a few days, May 21st. Frank, why do you think this election is so important?
Because it's the primary election. And in Idaho, that's the most important election because everyone knows that, at least in Bonneville County, you aren't probably going to win the election unless you've got an R, unless you're Republican. The Republican's going to win most of the time. And so this is when we choose at the primary who's going to run as a Republican. The most important position, in my opinion, in this election is the Precinct Committeeman. They're largely people that, it's your neighbor, but you don't even know that he's a Precinct Committeeman. There are 51 of them in Bonneville County, and I'm really concerned about our Central Committee and the rules that they've changed and what they're doing today that they never used to do. For example, they're endorsing candidates. I've got an endorsement here that used to be against the bylaws. 2 years ago, they ignored their own bylaws here in Bonneville County. They ignored them. The bylaws said they couldn't do that. They should let the public decide. That's not the place for the Precinct Committeeman to be telling people who the best Republican is, but let the people decide. That's been the rule throughout Idaho. They ignored those rules, and they not only endorsed candidates, they spent money into support of candidates. They got sued by the state GOP, and so they came back and just shrugged their shoulders and said, well, we'll change the bylaws then, which is unusual. Most counties don't do that. All over America, that's not the rule. The rule is that the party would let the people decide. But here in Bonneville County, they changed the rules and now are coming out with endorsements to tell us all who we should vote for. This came in our mail today, and this says, the local elected precinct committee officers who make up your official Republican Party of Bonneville County overwhelmingly recommend these platforms supporting Republicans. So they chose. But if you go and say, okay, well, who's telling us? Who is the official Republican Party of Bonneville County? Just their personal friends, the people that they had lunch with yesterday. I'm worried about that because if you just follow what they tell you to vote for, if you follow that, then you're going to put people in office that I think you probably don't want to have in office. Not everybody on this list. I'm not disparaging anybody on this list. I've got strong feelings about a couple of them, but that's not my purpose here. My purpose here is to say, please come vote. There's a very small group of men who make the decisions. They're personal friends of each other, and they make the decisions, and then the other folks come to the meeting, and there may be 20 of them, and it's already pre-decided how this is going to go, and they do their pitch, and they vote how they're told to vote. And if people speak out against them, this is the story I've heard about precinct committeemen who have served over the past year. If you argue against some of the rulemaking, then they will make it uncomfortable for you. They'll make sure you're not welcome at the meeting. People then don't show up at the meeting, or worse than that, they resign because they say, this is really unpleasant. This is even worth it. I got a life, I got my kids, I got whatever, and I'm just not going to do this. So they resign, and then the very people that ran them off get to choose their replacement. I'm just hoping that people will come vote and especially become familiar with who your precinct committeemen candidates are, and please become educated and vote. We need that.
Everybody has a committeeman, and like you were saying, not only can they decide who to endorse, they can decide if someone's even a Republican.
They have recently done that. Who's ever heard of that before? When did that happen to the Republican Party? That we have a handful of people who are going to decide whether you can even be on the ballot as a Republican. That's not the Republican Party that I've lived with my whole life. And I think there could be an argument that some of the folks who are doing this aren't really Republicans. They're not really conservatives. They're libertarians. But they've kind of hijacked the Republican label, and now they want to tell us who we're supposed to vote for because they're personal friends.
So, Frank, there's many people that might say, well, you're just trying to attack the Bonneville Party, and now maybe you'll get attacked for speaking out. How would you respond to that?
I'm an avid Republican. I'm an absolute conservative. I believe in conservative values. I want to preserve what made the Republican Party great, what I believe in: honesty, integrity, truth, and good, valid argument, maybe robust argument, without making each other enemies, and stop the attacks that we're currently seeing in the party. I'd like to see that stop. That's been the kind of the new operation of some of these really extremists. They'll just attack everybody who disagrees with them, and it's not my point to badmouth the local precinct committeemen. I just want to say, this is what's happening. It's being run by a very few people, and some naive people who are following them, and some very strategic, well planned out plans that are made in secret that then are presented to the committee, and then they get the vote, and they tell us who to vote for. But this isn't the Republican Party that I used to know. I'm an avid Republican. I'd like to preserve the principles that made it a great party.
All right, the primary election, May 21st. We have a link to everybody running for these committee positions, as Frank just mentioned. You can look on there and see who your committee member is, and then reach out to them and contact them and get their views.